Okay, hello everyone, Phil Pendlebury here. Hope you're having a super mega large day. And of course, as usual, for our viewers from the Middle East, Assalamu alaikum, marhaba. Hope you're all doing well. We've got a dodgy iPad accessory today, so forgive me if I'm not replying to chat messages. So today we're going to have a look at what could appear to be a little bit of a boring subject in the respect that there's not really any music involved, there's not really any sound involved, but we're going to have a look at ways to get your data and various track sources into Nuendo from other places, or from indeed Nuendo Cubase itself. So there's quite a few to get through. I'm going to try and go through everything on the menu. And don't forget, of course, if you've got any questions, feel free to ask. And also, if you're watching this later on, just ask away in the comments. Right, so let's move over to the screen. And I'm trying to think of the best way to kind of demonstrate this on the screen itself. So what I think we'll do is we'll have the full screen showing for a moment, and then what I'll do is I'll zoom in just to make sure you can see us. Yeah, what I'll do is I'll zoom in when we get to anything that's sort of more important to the project itself. But as it is at the moment, to be honest, it's more a case of just looking at some very basic things and a quick look at the menu. So let's get rid of my camera and you should be able to see everything. So we're going to start off with something that I touched on in one of my other videos. We're going to go into a little bit more detail though this time. Forgive me if you hear a little bit rustling here because I've got some notes just in case. So we're going to start off with import from project, which you'll find in the import menu here. There's two others above it, which we'll get to in a minute. In fact, audio file we don't need to worry about. That's really obvious. Importing an audio file is just a way of importing an audio file, which you would normally do by dragging and dropping. But we'll get to that in a bit. So let's start off with track import from project. So I've actually got this blank project activated at the moment. It's got something on it which we're going to use later on. But let me pull up a project that actually has something on it. Here we are. So I need to activate that. Just bear with it. Now I haven't got headphones on today because I said we weren't going to be doing much with audio. But hopefully you'll be able to hear that there's some music playing here. I will just move it into kind of a central position and then we can zoom in around that position. By the way, a couple of people were asking how. Let's go back out again. This will only take a second. Be patient. A couple of people were asking how I get these different zones on my screen. It works really well for many things, including Cubase. It's a bit like your kind of Windows built-in workspaces. So like for instance that one there, look, or if I wanted to snap to a smaller zone or over in the side here, and these are preset which you can make yourself, and it's fancy zones, which is it's part of the Windows Power Toys. I'm sure there's a way of doing that on the Mac as well, but for Windows, yeah, Power Toys. And I don't use hardly any of the features on that, but the fancy zones is really useful, and also the little mouse clicker you can see there. It's highlighting my left click and right click. You can see it's slightly green and slightly orange. Right, okay, let's move on. So hopefully we've got some audio here. Let's play. I'm going to check with my headphones. In fact, I'll keep the headphones on now for a minute. If you guys want to put your headphones on too, that's fine. Right. So there we go. We've got Groove Agent playing some drums, and we've got some bass from Easy Bass. Hopefully one or two of you will recognize the little groove that I've played in there. Got to get rid of this keyboard off here. Anybody else got iPad keyboard that just keeps doing really weird things and it won't let me get rid of it now. Okay, so there's the project. Obviously, I've saved that project, and you can have a quick look at it. It's easy bass, and it's Groove Agent drums with a actually it's got its own preset there, but I have edited the levels and just had a little bit of a fiddle about with it really, and we can maybe make some changes onto the EQ, but there's no need to worry about that because it's not about music today. Like I said, we're all talking about moving data around. So finally, we can get into it, but this keyboard is really bothering me. Maybe if I just get rid of... No. Oh, how annoying. Okay, never mind. That just means I won't be able to type in the comments to people at the moment. But that's okay. That's okay. Right. So we've got drums and bass in a project there. So what I'm going to do now is go over to the empty project, which we'll put into this zone here. Actually, let's put it into the center again. I need to activate it. And it decides to make itself big once it's activated. I think that's its way of saying, hey, I'm here. Okay. So now we'll go back to the main screen. Not that one. Back to the main screen, and you can see I'm going to go to File, Import, Tracks from Project. Right. So you've got that screen right in front of you now. It should be big enough. It should all be quite clear. And we're going to find that project that I just showed you with the drums and bass. So it's this one here, Music MIDI, MPR. I'm going to open. And here's the import options. Now, what I'd like to point out here is if you've done this before, you might find that sometimes you'll make your settings over here and then you'll hit OK and nothing happens. And it's sometimes because you may have forgotten to actually select the track. You just presume that you've already done it. So my suggestion on this is to work from left to right. Sorry for Arabic people. I know you're used to working from right to left, but in this particular case, left to right kind of does the trick, because we make sure that we have the track selected that we want and then the settings that we want. So let's bring in both of those instruments that you just heard. So we're going to say Groove Agent drums, select that. We're going to say bass, and we're going to bring them into a new track. And we're going to bring in the events and the parts and any of the channel inspector settings. Automation we don't need. And we're going to import at an absolute position, which in other words means where it was when I did it originally. And of course, the other thing here would be if there was any audio in that project, if you select the option to copy to active project folder, then your audio will now be brought in to the present project folder rather than it staying in the other one. So, okay, let's just use those basic options. It's showing you some information there, which is really useful. The sample rate, the frame rate, the project start time, etc. So here we go. There is a short delay and voila. So let's have a quick listen. Okay, so that worked perfectly. And you'll have noticed that it came in exactly where I put it. I have my project set with a bar offset. of -6, which again I can zoom out and I'll show you, because this is going to be quite important in a moment. So project setup here. You can see I've got my bar offset at 6, which means it gives me, let's just make sure you can see that. Yeah, it gives me actually 5 bars of negativity before 0. Okay, by the way, hi T, nice to see you again there. Yeah, I've just realized, and there's a question there which we'll get to in a minute. Okay, great. So yeah, so I've got a display offset of the bars there, and that actually comes into play in a minute when you see when we do a different kind of import. So all right, so that's come in perfectly, and off we go. That's fantastic. Now, obviously that would have worked for a much larger project. If you've got a project with hundreds of files or hundreds of tracks, the same thing, it works identically. So import tracks from project. Oh, I really liked the the bass sound on that project that I did the other week. Or I really let's see now, I've got some cloth movement that I did for some sound design, and I chopped it up and got all the bits that I really like. So rather than you having to recreate all that, or if you've forgotten to save it in any way whatsoever, track import from project, find it, bring it in, and off you go. And it really is that simple. On top of which, of course, you don't have to actually bring in the data, and you don't have to make new files. So let's get to that now. So I've got rid of that, undo. So you can see here I've got a new drummer and a new bass player, and actually it's not a bass, it's a keyboard. Yep. So what I want to do is bring those parts in and put them there instead. So again, you can't see this because I'm zoomed in, I think. Let's just make sure. Yep. So I'm going import tracks from project. Once again, I'm selecting the MIDI project that I made earlier. Starting from the top, we're not going to select all, that's obvious what that does. And we're going to look for the drums and the bass. But this time, we just want to put them, we just literally want the information. We want what they played. We don't want the instruments. So we've got events and parts. Channel and inspector settings, not really necessary. We can leave it ticked, but I guess probably not in this case, because we are literally putting it on to a new into a new place. We're going to leave it at the same place where I originally recorded it, and let's see if that works. So left to right, and so quick. So now let's have a play of that. All right. Okay, so before we do carry on, right, I need to mention this. I nearly forgot. Actually, I didn't. I was going to leave it till the end, but it just occurs to me. A good friend of mine, Helge, has written an application. It's actually Mac only, but he's given me a Windows version to kind of try out at the moment. And I'm interrupting this because he's given me some codes to give away. So if I can just find where it is, there it is, file names and markers. Hopefully you can see that. I know I'm digressing a little bit here. It's a fantastically useful little application. And what it does is it creates markers from a list of names that are in a CSV file, set up a predefined length and offset between markers, And it's a perfect tool for editing long audio files into a small segments with a pre-given name. Now you can quickly generate markers or regions with a name and time code for start and stop. So I'll show you how that works a little bit later, but I wanted to get this in early because Helge's kindly given me 5 activation codes for the application. So what I was thinking of doing was asking a couple of questions, and we've not got too many people watching right now, but I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll ask the first question now. If we don't give away all 5 of the codes right now while we're live, then we'll continue in the comments afterwards. So I just want you to tell me, what is that drum groove? Where does it come from? All right, so that's the first question. To get yourself a code for Helge's lovely file names and timecode markers application. And I said I'll show you about that a little bit later on. Right, let's carry on. So that's the basics. So we'll get rid of that. And what we're going to do now is show the difference in the positions. So once again, file, import, tracks from project. I'll pick the same MPR file, the MIDI. And you can see that I've put the cursor on mark 0 here. Now what happens, again, left to right, because I'm concentrating on this side here, but let's make sure I don't forget to actually pull in the actual relevant information. Events, parts, channel, inspector settings, don't need automation. What happens if we say relative position? So in other words, events and parts are inserted at their original position relative to the project start time. So this one will confuse a little bit. See, it's come back to 0. Now, for me, I was expecting something slightly different there. Maybe I've got that. Maybe I've got that wrong. Let's try the other option. Import a cursor position. So actually what I should do is move the cursor, really, shouldn't I? You can't see this, but I'm actually in the menu system while the screen's not moving. Okay. So let's try import a cursor position. You can see that I've put the cursor over at number bar 8 there. And don't forget to select the 2 items. We could select all the group channels. We could select all the effects channels. Actually, there isn't any, but let's do that. Small delay, and now this is what I was talking about earlier. Yeah. So as you've noticed here, although I said import a cursor position, it hasn't imported at cursor position, it's imported further over. And I think that that is to do with my track offset. And I did try some experiments with this, and that seemed to be the reason. I'm not going to bore you with that now because we are kind of, you know, we've got a lot to get through, and I've already wasted 20 minutes here with a little bit too much chat. So anyway, so watch out for that one. If you're using project time or bar offsets like I do, then sometimes things might not line up. I'm sure it's logical if we think about it, maybe if somebody wants to explain. Right. Okay, hi there, Vincent, by the way. He says, hi, import track project. Yep, that's exactly what we're doing right now. So let's move on to the next one. I just want to make sure there's nothing I've missed here because I wanted to try and get this as comprehensive as possible. So one more time, we'll just bring up that dialogue. Find the project. So you can select all the tracks. You can deselect them all. We can expand them all. So if there was things in the folders, collapse them all. We could type in, you know, anything that matches a certain thing, and we can obviously reset. Then you go to selecting your actual track. You can choose a new place to put it, or you can put it on an existing place. We've got the ability to only import the actual, track itself without any data, like this, or the events without any actual settings. We've got the ability to import automation, and of course the 3 different position options, and copying the media, if there was audio, into your current working project folder so that you don't lose the audio. So that's it. Now the reason I've gone through that in quite some detail is because a couple of the others are very similar. So that'll do with that one for now. So we're going to move on to track archives. Let's get back to the big screen. It looks like a big blank screen at the moment, but there you go. So here we are. This is import track archive. So I've gone from the 3rd item up to the 2nd item. So that's what we're going to do next. Once again, let's zoom into that project. And let us, there, put that in the center. So with track archives, you can import individual tracks from existing projects into your current project by means of track archives. The import options allow you to import tracks either as new tracks or as new track versions of existing tracks. So basically, it's very similar to import from project. And I'll show you an example of that now. So this is the import track archive. Now this has been saved as an XML file, as opposed to, a generic Cubase or Nuendo project file. And as you can see, we've got very similar looking dialog box. We've only got the drums in this particular one because that's the only thing that I exported when I was, setting this up for a demonstration. So once again, we've got the ability to select everything, to deselect everything, expand if there was other things there inside folders, collapse if there was things that you didn't want to see, select matching, and of course reset. So we'll select the GA drums once again, new track, and this is so similar to what you've already seen. Events and parts, channel inspector settings, automation we're not using, but that would of course import the automation. Quick drink of water there. So we'll go back to importing at absolute position. And once again, the option to copy audio or media, should I say, not just audio, because it could be other things, I suppose, to project folder. We don't need that. So let's see how that works. Yeah, and there we have a longer version. And of course, now we've got that in the project. And don't forget, it pulled in also the instrument and all the settings for the instrument, because these are instrument channels. So we've now got that running on both. So that's import from track archive. Again, pretty useful if you happen to get that. Maybe we can just have a quick look if I can find, yeah, if I can find that. There it is. So we'll open that up in, and you can see there it's an XML file. Those of you familiar with XML, you could probably do a little bit of editing on that, although then you get to the sort of meat and potatoes down at the bottom here, which I don't think you'd want to be messing with. So that's an archive, XML archive. Okay, enough of that. So we're going to move on to ADM import. So let's first of all just explain a little bit about ADM. So ADM stands for Audio Definition Model. Usually it'll be associated with Dolby Atmos and so on. And from the kind of manual, Nuendo allows you to import Audio Definition Model ADM files. For example, complete Dolby Atmos premixes for further mixing and editing. You can export your own Dolby Atmos mixes as fully compliant ADM BWF files. After completing this task, you can edit the ADM structure in the ADM authoring for Dolby Atmos window. You can mix the ADM in Nuendo using the VST multi-panner for panning and the rendering for Dolby Atmos or the external Dolby Atmos renderer for monitoring. So we're going to quickly demo an import of an ADM example, which I think I have somewhere here. So first of all, we need to make sure that we're going to activate this project. Give me 1 second. Yeah, okay. There we are, empty Atmos. So I need to activate that. All right, and it's made itself big. There we go. Okay, so you can see that it's an empty project. There is some Atmos stuff set up on the mixer. There's the renderer, and there's a couple of objects there, and then I've got NX Ambisonics quad, so I can do a little bit of Atmos mixing with headphones on. Yeah, so we're going to move in again. So there's the empty project. And incidentally, if you're interested in the Atmos mixing and so on and so forth, I'm hoping to do a kind of more detailed tutorial on that, how to set it up, especially for those of you that are like myself, working a lot of the time with headphones on. It is possible. It's complex, but it's doable. But it's one of those things that really, to do live, there would be a lot of sitting around while I click things and so on. It'd be nice to have an actual pre-made video on that. But we'll see how things go. But if you're interested in that, if you can't find what you're looking for online and you'd like me to do something like that, please, of course, let me know. Right. In this case, we're talking about importing, aren't we? So let's go back now. We need the full screen again, I'm afraid here. I'm sorry I'm having to flick around. Because importing an ADM, it doesn't come under file import. Oh yes, it does. Which one am I? I was thinking of, yes, no, it's sorry, it's the next thing that I was thinking of that doesn't come under file import. So there we are, sorry. Import ADM. So what I've done is I made a little example earlier on of a very, very rough ADM project, Atmos project, and exported it using Nuendo's built-in features. So this is all done within Nuendo, and it looks like a WAV file, but of course, as you guys probably are well aware, WAV files can contain a lot of information. And here is all the different objects that were in that particular file. So we'll just select them all. And say there's no need to worry too much. So actually, could I have done that? Yeah, all media files. And okay. So it's split them up, and if we move over, it's imported them to where I originally had them. Now, I don't know whether this is going to play. Yeah, it kind of is. So let's pull this mixer down. Whoops. There we go. So you can see it's pulled in. Pretty much how I've set it. It's just a very quick set with some stereo objects and moved around in various places. You won't be able to hear, I don't think, because obviously we're set up with the Ambisonics quad on. Let's have a. You might, I don't know, you might actually be able to pick that up, but that's for another tutorial. I want to be careful here, of course, not to play too much of that. It's a lovely piece of music. It was something I was just working on to test out some stuff, and it's one of our old classic pieces of music. Now then, so back to what we were saying earlier on. The file names and TC markers. Next question would be, for another code for that little application, would be what is this piece of music? I'm not going to play any more of it because today we're not talking about music, but just it's a famous, pretty well-known, no, not, I wouldn't say famous, pretty well-known soundtrack from a movie, and it was actually written by a rock musician. How's that? That's one way to put it. So there you go, that's ADM. It's pulled in everything. It seems pretty seamless to me. I haven't had a chance to kind of use it in great detail as it is at the moment. Right, so let's move on. So, fiddling about with my pieces of paper here. Yeah, I've just there we are, okay. So this is the one, we need to get rid of that. We can close that now, I don't need it anymore. We don't need any of those files. So we can now go back and activate our blank-ish project that we've been using. So, I've just got a little drink of water here, so cheers everyone if you're having a glass of wine or whatever you're having. Cheers. This is honestly just water. All right. So the next one I'd like to go through is the field recorder. Now, this is a tricky one for me because I didn't have any source material. Just the way that I work. So a good friend of ours, Fredo, sent me a big project with a lot of stuff in it, and really it's a case of finding, you know, what I could use for this particular demo. I think I found something. So thanks, Fredo, for that. The field recorder import, well, if you've not used it, it's probably because you've never needed to use it, but super useful. You imagine on location and you've got hundreds and hundreds of audio files, different boom mics, you know, different takes from the same scene. Obviously the key with this is whoever has recorded it would have to have recorded metadata. Metadata meaning, again, going right back to the basics, metadata meaning the information about what's gone on when that file was recorded. For example, you know, I'm going to record that guy over there hitting that golf ball, take one, and that information needs to be within the file to a certain degree. So what happens is you end up with, as you can imagine, hundreds and hundreds, potentially even thousands of files with, you know, all this different information in. So the field recorder is slightly different, really. It's not a basic import like the other things are that I've showed you so far. So let's have a quick look at that. If we were going to go through this in detail, we would be here for the whole hour. So I'm just going to do this quite quickly. First of all, we'll mute off the music. And here, yeah, this is what I'm going to need for this particular thing. So what I've got here is one particular part. Have a listen. So that's, I think, it looks like either surround compilation or it could be the different mics. It's difficult to tell with a quick look, and I haven't looked at this in any great detail. So field recorder. So let's say, okay, this is actually just one file. But let's say that file was corrupt for some reason, and we really liked what was going on, but oh, there's some stuff missing, and then it comes back, and then you know. So we go to project this time. We don't go to file import. We go to project, and we go to field recorder audio import, and there you can see it. Right. So what you would do, you find the folder. I've already done that here, but we can do it again. Nuendo imports, yeah. So let's add it again. So you find the folder that contains all the data, or all the field recorder files. It's now analyzing them. It says there's 124 files in that area. Now, the one that we want to look at, we need to select. So we'll select that, Marple 1016. When I first saw this, I got quite excited because I thought it was something to do with Mrs. Marple's, but it's not. So Marple 1016, that's the kind of area that we're looking at. What area of it are we looking? Well, first of all, we'll update it. There you can see, and we can audition that. Let's make sure you can still see that. Make sure I'm keeping it on the screen. Now imagine, you just have to imagine, like I said, for the sake of argument, I didn't want to rebounce this file or mess around with it too much, but just imagine that there was some dropouts there, or the file had, become corrupt in some place or another. And we want to find various things that are related to that file. Well, let's say scene. Let's say what information we need. Scene 1. Let's just have a quick search for scene. There you go. We've got that scene. It's come up with all the metadata. But that is not a match, is it? This is take 2. Let me just see. Maybe I've done something slightly wrong here. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Gillette? Yeah, I recognise. I don't know what he's saying there. It sounds like he's saying Gillette. Gillette? There's a different mic. And then we have different takes. So if we wanted to match that take 2, you see, because that metadata is there originally, it's actually found all the mics from the same take. Although the scene is slightly different, so I don't know why that would be. Like I said, these aren't my files, so I don't actually know the whole project back to front. But you get the idea, I hope. Extremely powerful. The other thing that you can do is, let's add an example. So we've got, first of all, of course, we didn't go through all these individual options, but I am conscious that we're slightly running out of time. Hang on a minute, what have we got here? T, yes, T, definitely won yourself a code there. It is that the music was June. It was one of the themes from the old original Dune movie, and it was written by actually the keyboard player from Toto. Lovely piece of music, and also used at some bar or other, by the looks of it. Angel W. Not sure what that is exactly, but anyway, yeah, well done. Just checking there's anything I've missed. Right, so yeah, so we've got all these different options as long as the metadata's there. But what if the metadata wasn't there? Well, what you can do is you can actually look at the file itself and see if there was anything, that's within the file that could be used as metadata. Now, in this case, there actually isn't. So I probably should have prepared a better example here, but if imagine that this file was actually labeled Marple 1016 take 2, you can select the take 2 and you can, add that little bit to the sort of perceived metadata, and you'll then be able to, it's not going to work now, but you will then be able to use it basically. So, all right, so let's go back to where we were. Have I messed things up here? So we're going to go duration, scene, and take. Let's do that. So there we go. There we go. So, okay, so you say to yourself, right, I like that one. You can either insert it directly into the pool or insert it into a lane, and we'll do that. Ah, yeah, okay. It's gone underneath, yeah. And notice also that it's matched up the size of, what I originally kind of folded away. So let's try that again. Keep that there. All right. So I've dragged it out a little bit this time. And there you can see it's matched that take, which is pretty clever. Okay. So once again, just to explain, field recorder, it doesn't come under the regular import because it's not really a regular import feature, and quite complex to use, and relying on all this, this metadata being in place, which of course with any good sound engineer or sound recordist it would be. But don't forget that there is the way of selecting parts of the file to make your own metadata. Right, so we've got to move on. We are running out of time here. So I've got one more kind of quite large one, and then I'm just going to quickly do some small ones. So the other big one is OMF. So OMF use for everyone really, and it's kind of, I guess you would almost call it the industry standard for getting things between Cubase and certain other DAWs, certain other DAWs that some people seem to still insist on using. The disadvantages of those, of course, is that they're not able to import and deal with data in the same way as Nuendo. But Nuendo can bring in and export OMF. So let's have a look at that. I think what I'm going to do is we'll move on, and I'm going to do one more thing related to that, because we've got a question earlier on from T. It says, sometimes I'm having trouble dragging and dropping audio into Nuendo, depending what studio I am in. Any thoughts? Yes, I do. This is something we come across quite a lot, so I think it's quite a simple one. There was a time a little while ago when people got it into their heads that they needed to run Cubase or Nuendo as admin, thinking that it would give them more power. It really doesn't work like that. If you have an elevated process, e.g. Cubase, and you are, you're not logged in the same way, basically the application itself and your privileges need to be the same. Now, even if you've got an admin account, you're not necessarily running as admin. So let's just put that to the test. Right, so here we are again. I'm going to find a audio file from somewhere. Let's go desktop. Isn't it funny how you get a little bit dithery when you know you're recording live? So work in progress. Let's just find making. I don't know what that is. It's somebody's mix, I think. So copy files project folder, and as you can see, it came straight in. Now, if I had run Nuendo as admin, that would not have worked. Basically, if you start Nuendo as admin, you need to be running with admin privileges, and even if you are logged in as an admin, you're not necessarily running with admin privileges. So I would suggest that you are probably running Nuendo as an admin, and you need to switch that off. Quite simple to do. You just right click on the program itself and go to properties and tell it not to start as admin. Right, final thing, because we are nearly out of time. Bear with me, folks. We're nearly done. I'm going to go back to that original one. Yeah, I can't see. This time it's worked. There you go. All right, so there must have been something I did. And like I said, you guys, if you're vigilant, you may have noticed that. It's one of those things, unfortunately, when you're doing a live stream and you're rushing a little bit.
Dubai has carved out a permanent place on the world map as an investment hub. And this week, the Emirate finds itself at the heart of the...
And you can tell, incidentally, if you're worrying or wondering why that particular... why the sound is all to one side there.
Place on the world map at the heart of the real estate industry.
That is because it needs the
Middle East and North Africa region's investors.
Townsend Sphere
Platform that showcases the best that the industry has to offer. From projects that push the boundaries of the sector to launches that redefine...
Anyway, you don't need to see that. Okay, so there you go. OMF, I assure you, despite the fact that I messed that up somehow, and I'm going to watch this video back later and I'm going to go, no! Yeah, I am. I'm going to hit myself on the forehead and there'll be something really obviously and stupid that I've done. But hey, don't worry, we've all done it. We've had a little bit of fun. We're trying to make importing files interesting. So before we finish off, a couple of other things to mention. So the others, the honourable mentions, I should say. AAS 31, Audio Engineering Society Broadcast Wave and Metadata, that can all be brought in. EDL, which is an edit decision list. I don't know if anybody's ever used that. An itemized list of video footage with associated time codes. So MXF, another industry standard file format for video and audio with metadata. And AAF also can be brought in. Do not confuse that with AIFF, which of course is Apple's old equivalent, I think, to the WAV file. AAF, the Advanced Authoring Format, multimedia file format that allows you to exchange digital media metadata between different systems and applications across multiple platforms. Metadata includes fades, automation, and processing information. Have you noticed that a lot of the time, what's coming up in this whole thing is metadata, and it's something that's obviously very important, but you'd kind of learn, and if you haven't already, you should. But I'm sure you have. If you're using Nuendo, you're probably already one of those kind of people. But important to keep things organized, right down to where things are on your computer. Now, despite what you might think of looking at what I've just been doing, you know, my system has to be very, very organized. Subfolders, folders, particular names, dates, years, and that's what metadata is all about. So when you're recording things, it's very important to try and save that if you can. And one thing that I'd just quickly like to show before I do, yeah, let's just get rid. You don't need to keep seeing me. One thing I'd really like to show, and then we've got the final little thing to finish off with. So, talking about that metadata, the very basic export of audio mixdown. So here it is, and again, you guys have seen this box a million times in one shape or another, and we've done tutorials on it. And we're not going to do that now. You know how all this works. Of course, if you don't, let me know. We can always go into this in more detail. But one thing I would strongly advise, when you get to your export, again, left to right, when you get to your actual file format here, I have a preset, which is basically, you know, a raw file. But I removed my main preset because I wanted to show you what to do. So I believe you should always, or let's say 99% of the time, insert the broadcast wave chunk into your wave files, insert the XML, insert tempo definition. These are fine. These are fine. Normalize, definitely not, of course. And dialogue gated, I don't think, you know, you'd want to save, maybe you'd want to save a preset with that, but I wouldn't have thought it'd be something that you'd need to do like too often. After export, do nothing. There's few options there, but this is not my point. My point here is this side of things. I'm currently always using 24-bit 48K, just because it kind of fits with most purposes. And so I'm going to save the preset as wave 2448 with meta, or let's just call it meta there. So now, if we, let's say we've done a quick MP3 export, and there's your export done. We go to meta, we go to that one, and all those things are there. And when you export, all the information that should be in that file, you will find in that file, which could be really useful. You might think you never use it, but hey, who knows? Right, last thing before we go then, a couple of thank yous. First of all, got to say big thanks to Helge for the application, which I can't fully demo, and I did actually. It's one of those things I sent. I sent an email earlier on to Helge, and I think he missed it. And what I wanted was a demo CSV file. But basically, what you get here is you get the ability to drag in a CSV file, and it will create all the markers for you. If you want to have a look at it, there's a link which I will put in the comments, or I'll put it in the description actually. I think it might already be there. I've got 5 codes to give away from Helge. Thanks for that indeed. At the moment it's Mac only, Windows is coming, so that's that one. Also, yeah, we're back to the camera and we don't need the screen anymore. Also, I want to say a big thanks to Fredo, Simon Milward, Pal, Svennevig, Erik, Guldager. There's a bunch of people who've been very helpful with the sort of overall sound design thing. Trying to put together tutorials and things to do live is tricky. But hopefully we've got through some stuff and we've had a little bit of fun. I'm just going to quickly check the chat here if we've missed anything. Yeah, not really. That's it for now then. So I'm not sure what's happening next. Next month we might be skipping, we might be doing a pre-recorded. If anybody's got anything they'd like to say, any constructive criticism, if you feel I'm talking too much, not enough, or anything like that, please just let me know, and I'll be happy to kind of adjust things to what you think is best. Hope I haven't missed anything. Have a great rest of the evening, and I'll see you again soon. Super mega large. Bye for now.